All right, I've been asked about my player development journey multiple times. People will say, hey, tell me about your journey. Tell me about your career. Tell me about this. And I realize I've never sat and told the whole story throughout. And so I wanted to take time because there were a couple people asked me at the Player Development Summit. And my normal response is like, hey, go check out LinkedIn. There's some good stuff there. But then there were some international people in this space that asked me about my story after the summit. So I was like, you know what? Let me make a video. And in preparing for this video, I realized this is year 10 of going into player development. So I'm excited to create this video for you all. If you don't know me, my name is Ed Jones. I'm the founder of Beyond the Field program right here. We just came off a successful 2025 Player Development Summit. Beyond the Field is here to develop people and elevate programs. And so I'm excited to share this entire channel with you. Thank you for checking this out. Like and subscribe. Make sure you like and subscribe. But today I'm going to talk to you about player development and my player development journey. But before we get there, I want to give you a definition of what player development is. I define player development as the enhancement of the athlete experience through holistic and intentional programs and initiatives. And so I'm going to walk you through this entire process. And so I got a few props. So let's go. Today's conversation is going to be real. It's going to be raw. And yeah, I just want to give you everything. I don't want to sugarcoat things. And I'll explain different times in my life, and my stories had ups and downs, and they've all got me to this point, which I actually enjoy being in this point, but we will be raw in those situations. So let me start off first. In 2016 was my first year in player development, okay? First year in player development. I was at my alma mater, the Hightower Hurricanes. I suck at putting these stickers on. I never was good at it. But I was at Hightower High School, and I was going to my third year, preparing for my fourth season. And there I was coaching, I was offensive coach, and I was leading our recruiting. Okay. I was our recruiting coordinator. And in that, we had a very, very talented group of players. We had a sophomore group that was very, very good. And so we had over 300 coaches come from the college level. And as I saw these coaches, there were things I learned and things I wanted to be associated with. And I wanted to be part of college football, but I never wanted to sacrifice what I was doing or the impact I could have on the players by doing such. But I'll never forget, I had a conversation with Coach Curtis Looper. Shout out to Coach Loop. He's still in Missouri. He's down the street, and you go visit him. He said, hey, Jones, you're not going to be at the high school level for long because the college is going to grab you. And I said, Coach, I appreciate that, but why would you say that? He said, these kids, your kids talk about you at campus. They talk about the impact you make. And not only do your kids talk about you, kids from other schools wish they had a you in their school. And so I'm like, all right, sweet. I'm making my contacts. He also told me, hey, Jones, these people are coming to recruit your players. You have the access to make connections and make asks to get to where you want to go if you want to go college football. So I'm like, all right, sweet. So coming off the 2015 college football season, my alma mater, University of Houston, had won the Peach Bowl. One of the assistant coaches on the staff, he recruited our school. We had a good relationship because he recruited our school at a couple different universities. And shout out to Coach Niver, Coach Craig Niver, he was in a running. They had his name up for a head coaching job. So I reached out to him and I texted him, hey, Coach Niver, this is Ed Jones. Man, if you get it, I would love to come on your staff, be a director of high school relations, whatever you need to do, QC, and then eventually get on the field, right? So he texted me, hey, thanks so much. I saw his name on some different platforms that say he was going to get it. So nothing happened there. There was some other stuff happening. I was positioning myself. And this is when I knew I was going to go to college. We had a coach who came back and recruited our guys in January of 2016. He was defensive coordinator at a Division I school. And he said, Jones, I applied for this job. And if I would have got the job, he said, I don't know if you could coach or not, but you would have been my first hire because I see what you do for these players in recruiting. And I know you would be great for recruiting for players that we would bring into the program. So I'm like, all right, sweet, perfect. So I'm like, all right, they thinking about me, right? They thinking about me. So it's pretty awesome to hear a coach who interviewed for a head coaching job say, hey, I would have moved you. Now, that school is out in the boonies, but I would have had to make my move. So anyway, I'm hearing all this stuff. I go to AFCA. It's in San Antonio that year. I'm making connections. I'm seeing everybody that I recruited or worked with in recruiting. I'm making names. I'm meeting up, seeing different things. I know people are maneuvering, trying to get jobs. Head coaches are moving on and so forth and so on. So what happens at the University of Houston is Dallas Blacklock was the director of high school relations. I got to know Dallas pretty well. Shout out to Dallas Blacklock. And he transitioned to Texas Southern, which is across the street. If anybody knows, Houston is literally right here. Texas Southern is literally a baseball throw away from University of Houston in the third ward. Shout out to the third ward. And he goes to be the receivers coach at Texas Southern. So I text him like, hey, I don't know if you have a replacement. I don't know who's going to replace you, but you know what I'm saying? Let me know, get my name in there, whatever. He's like, cool, I got you. So he puts it in, he puts my name in, and he's texting me these things, and things are going on. And I know a lot of things happen as because he just got a job, he's got to get prepared for signing day. So what happens is one day, Coach Niver calls me. Coach Niver says, hey, I'm coming to the school, and I'm bringing Herm with me. Coach Tom Herman, I'm bringing Herm with me. So I'm like, all right, sweet. I'm not thinking much of it. I get the whole recruiting board ready. I got it. I'm talking to Coach Herm. He comes in. He's got this big national championship ring. When he was an offensive coordinator at Ohio State, that thing looked like it was that big. So he brings it in. Shout out to my coach, Patriot McGinnis, who I work for at Hightower High School. We're like, dang. So we're sitting there talking about recruits, and we're, hey, coach, this class has a few players, but the class following it is loaded. We'll have some talent. We'll get guys to camps or whatever. We had 3 players who were originally committed to the University of Houston who decommitted, right? They decommitted from the University of Houston. So he's like, hey, no hard feelings, whatever it may be. I'm here. Thank y'all so much for all you've done. And I was, a former University of Houston Cougar, and Coach Herman wrote a whole bunch of letters to people who were former Cougs who were coaches. And so he's like, it's great to meet you. And we actually, he liked a couple of my tweets, and he quote tweeted one, which actually, when I got the job at University of Houston compliance, like, you the one who got the violation. But anyway, so Coach McGinnis tells Coach Herm, he says, hey, Coach Herman, hey, if I were you, I'd shoot my shot at Jones. And I'm like, I appreciate you, Coach Matt. And Coach Tom Herman looks me dead in my eyes. He says, that's why I'm here. He's like, is there a room to interview? And I'm like, yo. So I'm like, kind of like, oh, snap. Like, this is happening. So we go into the office and meeting room. I got to kick some coaches. I'm like, Coach, I think I got to be in here. So we sit down. Coach Herman's talking to me. Coach Niver's there as well. Coach Herman's asking me questions about myself. He kind of knows who I am based off what Coach Niver told him and Coach Blacklock told him, and other people and players. We had some players on the team that played for me when I was at Hightower. And so he asked some questions. So I remember saying like, oh, Coach, I'm really excited. He's like, hey, we got this opportunity on our staff. We've heard great things about you. Would you be interested? I'm like, absolutely. I'd love to be interested. And so he literally told me, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, hey, yeah, Coach, I'm really excited because I want to learn O-line play. I want to learn more about the offensive side of the ball because Coach Herman's the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. Then the offense did an incredible job at University of Houston, winning the Peach Bowl. And he looked me dead in my eyes and he said, you're not going to coach football. You're going to be director of high school relations and the director of player development. He said, I need you to be there for my players. If you want to show me that you can coach, you better be the best director of player development you could be. So I'm sitting there like, all right, sweet. I ain't gonna coach. What is player development, right? So time goes on. I ask him one more question. I say, Coach, what do you look for in player development? I understand director of high school relations. I wasn't too familiar with player development. I think I knew what it was, right? I could figure it out, but I wanted to hear what he said. He said, you would take care of the players, get the players in the community, and get them summer jobs. So I'm like, all right, sweet. So we sit at those 3. I'm feeling good. Coach Herman goes to go talk to Coach Mack. I'm with Coach Niver. I'm like, man, how you feel? He's like, I think you're good. I feel good about it. I was like, okay, cool. Because once again, this is an interview I was not prepared for, right? So anyway, time goes on. I have another interview before signing day. Signing day, we had about 20 guys sign. Like I said, we had a loaded class. So I made sure that they were signed. And we had an interview when the dead period happened. I think it was a weekend before signing day. So I went to the University of Houston for an in-person interview. And I'm sitting there meeting everybody on staff. I know some of these people because I have visited practice and things like that. So I'm going to University of Houston, meeting people, saying hello, hey, how you doing? I'm Ed Jones, different things like that. So we're meeting, and I have a sit down with Coach Herman, and Coach Herman lays it down, and he's like, hey, here's the position. Here's what you do. He made sure I met different people. He was like, here it is. So they laid out the position, or as much of it as they could lay out as possible. He told me what the salary was. It was a massive cut. Okay. It was a massive cut, and I'll keep it a buck, right? I was making about 78, 78, almost 80 as a high school coach. Coach Herman looked me dead in my eyes. He was like, it's $50,000. No more, no less. So I was like, all right, appreciate it. So anyway, I did an interview. I got back. The funny thing about the interview was I was dressed in a suit leaving the high school, and I couldn't, tell people I was going to interview. And they're like, oh, Coach Jones, you look sharp. I'm like, yeah, I got to go take some pictures, blah, 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 right? So anyway, which I actually did take pictures. So it wasn't a true fib. But anyway, so I'm getting there, and literally something happens in the hallway, and this teacher's like, Coach Jones, we need you in the hallway. And I'm like, no. So literally I had to fix this thing. I'm driving to Houston. I know every route to get there. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna be late to this interview. How am I gonna be late? So I'm pulling up, I'm running across the parking lot. I'm putting on my belt, whatever it may be. And shout out to Coach Bill Yeoman, who is the legendary coach of University of Houston. He was having a conversation with Coach Herman for like 15 minutes that went over the time, which, hey, helped me out. So shout out to Coach Bill Yeoman, because whoever those kids were that got that situation in the hallway, I was like, y'all messed me up. So anyway, time goes on. It is signing day was Tuesday. I let the guys know pretty much, like I let our players know, like, hey, just want to let y'all know this probably is going to happen. I feel good about it. If they offer, I'm out of here. So I let all the players know on Monday. So all the players who were signing, the seniors who I had been with for 3 years, I let them know like, hey, this is going to happen. It's coming down the pipe. I'm probably going to be out of here. All right. So I let them know, and we have a good conversation. We're talking about it. And at signing day, I'm giving this passionate speech, this passionate spiel to our juniors, our sophomores, to parents, to middle schoolers, like about, hey, this opportunity is great, whatever. And I remember one student said like, hey, Jones, you said that like you leaving here. And I was like, oh, I was just super passionate. So anyway, time goes on, and I am now in a place where I'm sitting there throughout the week, like, all right, signing day. They told me to hit me up at the signing day. So I'm kind of nervous, right? You're sitting there like, okay, they did their signing class. I went to the signing day event because it's my alma mater. Wanted to also show my face signing day event. So I want to get there, and I'm like, all right, sweet. Cool. I get there and I'm like, all right, cool. I see people that are like, man, you had a great interview, man. Hopefully we see you soon. So I'm all right, whatever. So Thursday, signing day was on Tuesday. Thursday of that week, the February week in 2016, I'm on first base and I'm teaching our guys how to steal, because I'm a coach, right? Baseball coach. I'm like, hey, we want to come off first base, couple steps. We're here, we're watching here, we're looking here. And I get a 713 number. Is this Ed Jones? Yeah, this is Ed Jones. This is he. This is Tom Herman with the University of Houston, head football coach. We're going to offer you the position. Literally, I dropped to my knees in the infield. I'm like, yes, thank you, God. And so like, the players are like, what's going on? So I told them, and I had to go tell the baseball coach. I said, hey, Coach Herman, thank you so much. Awesome. And he says, I said, I'm going to let my principal know. He says, you need to be here Monday. And I'm like, whoo, okay. So I tell my baseball coach, like, hey, it's been cool. The head coach, hey, I'm out of here. Like, this is my last day. So I try to go tell the principal. I told the head coach first, and then I came back, I told Coach McGinnis first. And I came back and told the baseball coach. I told the baseball coach, hey, I got to go let Coach Mack know something. So I told the baseball coach. Then I was looking for the principal. I'm sitting there. I'm looking for the principal. It's about 5 o'clock, probably 4:30. So I'm thinking she's still there before she's at 5. She's not there. So I'm like, all right. So then I call our athletic director, let him know. Shout out to Coach Philip O'Neill. Hey, Coach O'Neill, I got the Houston job. He's like, awesome. Like, awesome. He knew me. From Coach O'Neill, shout out to Coach O'Neill, Coach Mack. I had some really good people, key people in my life that helped me get to this point. And as I'm telling my story, I want to make sure everybody knows, like, you got to know these key people in your life that help you get to a point. So what happened was Coach O'Neill really worked with me. I remember I applied for a head coaching job in the district, and he brought me in. He said, hey, Ed, I love you. I love your energy, but you're not ready for this yet. And here's why. And he broke down why I wasn't ready, but he also gave me the tools. And we sat there, we did a mock interview. It was incredibly awesome. So I was very close to Coach O'Neill. I let him know, hey, Coach, I got the job. He's like, awesome, cool. So he's like, did you let the principal know? So I'm looking for the principal, and the principal's not there. So the next morning, I am there at 5 o'clock in the morning. Like, I am in the school, sitting at her desk, just waiting. And I'm waiting. I got some breakfast stuff, some donuts to kind of ease it, right? So she comes in, hey, Coach, everything good? Like, yes, ma'am. I just got to update you on some things. I said, hey, shout out, hey, Miss West, just want to let you know I got the University of Houston job. She said, oh, you going back to alma mater? Congratulations. Yeah, they hired me as director of high school relations, director of player development. She's like, awesome. So like, how are you going to, like, when do you start? I was like, he told me I have to be there Monday. And she was like, ooh, okay. Okay, coach. Okay. Monday. So you're going to take it? I said, yes, ma'am. I said, it's not the way I wanted to do it, but I am gone. So anyway, I got these days, because as a coach, I didn't miss many days. So I got the long-term sub or a permanent sub in the building. Shout out to Coach Ward. I played with his son. And I grabbed Coach Ward. I say, Coach Ward, I got this many days. Here's all the worksheets. Here's everything they need. Here's the lesson plan for this. Here's the test. Here's the project they've done. So I already had some major grades coming in, because I knew something was going to change. So I did a couple tests early. I'm like, here you go. This is all you need. So I put in the days, whatever, boom. So I call HR, and whenever HR gets in, I'm like, hey, how y'all doing? They're like, oh, you got the Houston job. That's awesome. And I'm like, hey, HR, I'm leaving. Today's my last day. I'm going on Monday. And HR is like, well, you can't do that. And I'm like, I get it, but I have to go. This opportunity I can't miss out on. And so once again, I let the athletic director know. Shout out to Coach O'Neill. He's like, "Look, man, I got your back. I got your back. I'm gonna do what I got to do for the district, but I got your back." So shout out to Coach O'Neill. And we had one principal. I could see his face. Oh, it's gonna bother me. That's gonna bother me. But one principal, he came and he told me. He said, "Jones, I heard you leaving." I said, "Yes, sir." And I thought he was gonna tell me to stay. He said, "Jones, get out of here." He said, "That's a great opportunity for you." He said, "We had a coach when I was at Willow Ridge. The coach," he said, "this coach had an opportunity to go to college, and now he's been working in the NFL for forever. And that coach is Thomas McGahee." And so he said, "Hey, you got to leave." And so it was pretty awesome. It was surreal. I wanted to make sure I told my kids, my athletes in fifth period. So I went through my first 4 periods as a teacher, not telling kids. And when I got to my class sixth period, there was a lot of people mad that I didn't tell them. But it worked out how it worked out. Hey, the crazy story is HR was on the phone with me. It was a Friday night. We had a basketball game. HR was on the phone with me during a basketball game at 7 o'clock at night. And they're like, "Coach, you can't leave. You can't leave. You can't do it this way. You'll never come back to the district, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "It's unfortunate, but this is a choice I had to make." "Well, Coach, you're taking a pay cut." And I was just like, "I understand." Even Coach McGinnis is my guy who set me up. And Coach McGinnis was like, "As a head coach, I have to, you know, give you a ultimatum, or I forgot what negotiate a new price." So he had upped my salary, made me assistant head coach, so up the salary to around the $87,000 mark. So I'm like, man, I'm about to miss out on 37,000, but I knew this was the right thing to do. I knew at some point I would make that money back. And so that was my first story of getting to the University of Houston from Hightower High School. Now, the lesson in that, we're still in 2016, but the lesson in that is to be where your feet are. Be where your feet are. I know a lot of people watching this, and this is a long one, so you're in it for the long haul watching this. Some people watching this may say, well, yeah, that's easier said than done. Be where your feet are. You have to be where your feet are. I was where my feet was. All I cared about was getting these kids recruited and getting these kids to college campuses. And coaches saw my dedication. Coaches heard what players said about me. Coaches heard what other people, students said. "Oh, we wish we had Ed Jones," whatever it may be. Be where your feet are. Be where your feet are. It is one of the number one things that'll help you get to this place. You have to be great at what you're doing. I saw a lot of coaches who were high school coaches who wanted to get to college, and they were like, "Jones, how did you do it? How'd you do it, Jones?" And I just kept telling them, I was just great at being a recruiting coordinator and a receivers coach and a teacher. And I don't know what else to tell you. I was just great where I was at. So the lesson in that first lesson going from Hightower to University of Houston is be where your feet are. All right. So as you know, I got to the University of Houston, my alma mater. I'm the director of player development. I'm so excited. Director of high school relations. Matter of fact, while you're looking at this, let me not forget, please like and subscribe. And so my first day was absolutely crazy. I get there, and before I even find my office, I had to handle a situation immediately. We talked about it at the 2025 Player Development Summit, but you can find out more about my first day on the job right up here in the cloud. It's up there. That episode was incredible. But here I am, and I'm going back. It's so awesome. The first day was kind of crazy because I'm sitting there, and I'm so used to taking roll at certain parts of the time. And I'm sitting at my desk in college, like, "Oh, I forgot to take roll for my class." Now I realize that I don't have a class anymore. And so what's crazy about that is HR called Coach Herman. Forfeit ISD called HR, called Coach Herman, and they told him, like, Ed Jones has to come back. And he was like, he's not coming back. But anyway, I'm there first day, going around meeting people, having the meetings, going to this meeting, different things like that, just trying to figure out what's going on. But I know, once again, going back to the conversation I had with Coach Herman, if I want to be a coach, I have to be the best director of player development I could be. Now, thankfully, I knew some of these players. 3 players on the team were with me at Hightower High School: Matt Adams, Khalil Williams, Joel Williams. They played for me my first year at Hightower, so I knew them, which was good for them to be like, "Oh yeah, that's Ed Jones. He cool people," right? And other people in the locker room I knew based off their coaches. But what I realized was I started building relationships with these players pretty quickly, because we were there a lot, and they just, I just like people. I'm very honest, very genuine who I am, and players respect that. Players respect when you are who you are. But what really kind of turned the tide and got the trust with me for the players was a spring break presentation I did. I did a spring break presentation. Coach Herman was like, "Ed Jones, you need to do a spring break presentation. These guys cannot get in trouble." And so I reached out to Daytona Police Department. I reached out to Myrtle Beach. I reached out to Corpus Christi, reached out to Galveston. I reached out to all these different places where Cancun, where people go on spring break. And they actually gave me a lot of information back. It's amazing what you can get for a t-shirt and a hat. So it gave me all this information. I made this presentation. And what was pretty cool at the end of the presentation, the captains, I'll never forget, shout out to Cam Malvo. Cam was like, hey man, I appreciate you, bro. He was like, you went up there, you talked well, you spoke well, you presented to us, you taught. And he was like, bro, you weren't scared of the moment and you gave us the information we need to know to not make mistakes. The other thing was there was one player who literally came up to me and was like, hey, I had plans, but after hearing your presentation, I'm not going. So that gave me a lot of kudos, not only with the staff, but also with the players. So as the time's going on, we get into spring football, we get to know players. More players are coming to my office. More players are hanging out. More players are, hey, what's up, Ed Jones? Hey, Ed Jones, come to breakfast. Hey, Ed Jones, blah, blah, blah. So I'm starting to build these relationships, which I was told to do. Be there for the players, give them in the community, and then get them in career development. Get them summer jobs. So time goes on, we start getting in the community. So I send something out on Facebook, hey, University of Houston football team wants to come out to the community, let us know. So I put on Facebook, all these teachers tag teachers, they're tagging me, and we are all around the city. If anybody knows Houston, Houston is huge. You can be an hour and a half away from another part of Houston and still be Houston, in some cases still be in the same zip code. So it was crazy. We went all around the city. It was fun. And so I'm learning. And as I'm learning, I'm really enjoying this time with the players. Because what I know is when I was a high school coach, I knew all our players, but I had a position. I had my wide receivers. That was it, right? Those are my guys I spent all the time with. But in this director of player development position, I'm spending time with everybody. Everybody spending time with the walk-ons. Shout out to walk-ons. I don't like this one roster cut from 120 to 105 that's happening because a lot of walk-ons are going to suffer. But anyway, I spend a lot of time walk-ons, spend a lot of time with players. And so I'm thinking to myself, like, man, in a sense, I'm making the same impact I may have thought I could if I wanted to be a head coach. My goal was to be a position coach in 5 years and to be a head coach in 15 years. That was my goal going in there. All right, by this time, I'm going to be a position coach. And by this time, I'll be a college football head coach. And so that was still in my head. I'm not going to lie to you. And then we had this major event that changed everything for me. And that major event was going into spring ball. Coach Herman wanted a alumni event. So the University of Houston has a frayed alumni. So Coach Bill Yeoman, who I talked about earlier, he was a head coach for 27 years, 28 years, I believe. And after that, there was no coach that was there longer than 7 years. And so we had this frayed alumni base. And Coach Herman was coming from Ohio State, where they have a great alumni base. And before that, he spent time at the University of Texas, where they have a great alumni base. And so he wanted to let all the players know they can come back. And so shout out to all the people that helped me. We basically created like a situation deal where it was a graphic. Shout out to Adam Cordaji and everybody who helped me. But we called it The Return. I literally got on Facebook once again, and I was like, hey, we would love to have our former University of Houston Cougar football players back. Tag somebody, tag somebody, tag somebody. We're going literally, my intern, Albert, literally went through every single roster, and he is lit. I'm like, hey, I had my Facebook open, Albert Garcia, shout out to Albert Garcia. I'm like, Albert, you go through and add every single player from the 1960s on, and we actually did that. So we were inviting them on. It became a successful event. So we got all these people registering. Doc O'Shea, shout out to Doc O'Shea. He's in the university a long time. University of Houston, so he's coming up checking to see who's coming. So we had a lot of people coming from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, thousands, and even the tens. And so it was 2000, I should say, and then the tens. And so it was really, really good. I was really, really excited. And this is the part that changed my player development journey. So as we're there, we're getting prepared. It's going on. The event's going well. The players are there. We're connecting former players with current players. Everything is looking really, really great. I have a podcast episode about alumni engagement somewhere on this channel. And I remember a big time player from the 90s whose jersey was in our awards room, Hall of Fame. His cleats are there. His records are all in our position meeting room for his position. And I remember seeing him, and he was a big guy, but he was like massively overweight. He just kept crying the whole night. He kept crying the whole night. He was just crying the whole night. And it was a little more than crying like, hey, I miss my teammates. There was some pain behind those tears. And we found out that he was homeless. And I just remember sitting there, and like one of the, former players' dad who we knew, who was a father of a player who was on the team. He's like, man, it's sad to see him like that. He's like, all right, well, I see you. And I just remember thinking like, dang, it can't just be that, right? It can't just be, dang, it's messed up to see so-and-so like that, right? And no fault to the players, but I mean, I just kept thinking to myself, like, he played for University of Houston. We didn't take his jerseys away. We didn't take his cleats away. We didn't take his helmets away. or any memorabilia or his records or anything, and he's in good enough standing to come back to the university, can we help him? And I was just like, man, and even if he doesn't want our help, can we ensure that we prevent the situation for our players that are coming behind him? And so that was what really turned it around for me. I remember I was dumping water about 1 o'clock in the morning, 1:30 in the morning, dumping coolers. Yeah, all y'all don't want to work in player development think it's just a picture here and a picture there. Yeah, wait till you put on an event. So I'm dumping coolers at 1:30 in the morning, and I just can't get off my mind. And I sit in the locker room for maybe 30, 40 minutes before I head home to come right back. And I just remember thinking like, man, it was on my mind for like weeks. Like, it was on my mind for weeks. I kept thinking about, okay, all right, spring ball finish. All these coaches gonna get on the road. I'm gonna go watch film. That was my whole deal. I'm gonna watch film, break down spring ball, learn our systems and concepts. And I just remember thinking like, man, like that just was on my mind. Like, man, he is really down bad. And so I just got to the point right there where I was like, you know what? I'm gonna dive into this player development deal. I'm gonna dive into this. And I hung up my proverbial whistle. I wish I'd have kept the whistle. It'd be nice to have it hanging back here. But I hung up my proverbial whistle, right? And I was just like, I'm gonna dive into this player development because I don't want to see any of my players like this. I don't want any of my players to go through this situation. And even if they go through and make choices, I want to be there or have the systems there. If they come back, they can get the help they need. And so that's what turned it for me. That's when player development, that's when I dove into it. Because I looked at not only his situation, but I looked at my situation. I was getting to talk to all the players. I was getting to make all the impact. I was meeting the parents, the significant others, brothers, sisters, all that. I was getting to meet all these people and getting to impact lives. And so that is when, in 2016, when I was at the University of Houston, I dropped my whistle to coach and decided, hey, let's go. I'm going to go all in on player development. And the lesson learned there was the impact I wanted to have at some point as a head coach of a college football program. I could have an even greater impact in the role of player development. That's what I learned in 2016. Now, as we get ready for my second year of player development, this one's kind of crazy because after that, Coach Tom Herman left to the University of Texas, right? And so this is kind of 2016, end of 2016, and then we'll talk about getting into 2017. So Coach Tom Herman left the University of Texas, and Coach Todd Orlando was our interim head coach for about a week or so. And so I'm sitting there, Alex Brown, shout out to my guy, Alex Brown. I passed my recruiting test. So Alex was like, hey, we need to get you on the road because all these coaches left to Texas. We got to get people out to recruit. So I'm excited. I'm about to go on the road, see my high school homeboys, wear the nice UH gear. If they get nice recruiting gear, right? Get the rental car, drive up to the school. Hey, I'm here to see so-and-so. And Coach Orlando comes down and he says, hey, Ed, tell me, and Coach Orlando's, I like working with Coach Orlando, but he's very quiet to himself. He says, hey, Ed, tell me what you do. And so I broke down, this is what I do. Now, I didn't break it down as well as I break it down now, but I'm kind of like, okay, I do academics. I handle walk-ons. We do stuff in the community. We do this, we do this, we do. He's like, academics, right? He said, hey, Ed, here's the deal. I know you want to get on the road and recruit, but you need to stay here and finish academics. All these players, I want every single player here to be eligible or finish up their eligibility to play in the bowl game. He was like, I know you want to get on recruit. I know you were packed, and I know we had a list of schools for you and all that. He was like, you need to stay here and you need to help these guys with academics to finish the semester strong. So I was like, all right, sweet. So that was that. Like, it wasn't nothing I could do, right? And so I sat there, I got with academics, shout out to our academic staff there, and we went through it and we made sure everybody was good. And a week after that, Coach Orlando, he kept coming to my office, asking me questions. He kept, hey, Ed, what do you think about this? Ed, what about this? What's the update on this? And he was like very active in these academic settings or meetings. So it was really me talking to him and not somebody else. So I appreciated that because I was the one doing the work. But after that, a week later, I believe, probably a week later, Coach Major Opwhite gets the permanent head job. So our offensive coordinator, Major Opwhite, gets the head coaching job at the University of Houston. So I'm excited. I'm still kind of in limbo because I'm like, all right, am I going to Texas with Coach Herman? I literally had reporters telling people Ed Jones is going to Texas. And I'm looking at my phone like, whatever text messages or phone y'all got, I do not have the same thing. And so it was interesting because like people had one of my homeboys, he knew somebody was like, man, I'm hearing Ed Jones's name in Austin. I'm hearing Ed Jones's name in Austin. I was like, I don't know. And I'm not saying the report wasn't right. I found some stuff out later about why I stayed, which wasn't bad. It's just an agreement. According to sources, I was asked, they were asked, from sources, the University of Texas football team was asked to let me stay so that I could help the transition of the new head coach, which it all worked out how it was supposed to work out. But that's according to sources. Like I said, I don't know if that's true or not. But anyway, so Coach Applewhite gets the job. I call him. I'm like, hey, Coach. All right. I called him. I said, hey, Coach, I just want to let you know, congratulations on getting the job. Once again, I don't know if I got a job or not. I got my teacher certificate. I'm ready to go back to high school. Or if Texas doesn't call, whatever it is, what it is. If Coach Applewhite's like, hey, man, I'm going to move on. Cool, whatever. He gets on the phone and he says, hey, Ed, I really want to have you on my staff. And I'm like, all right, awesome. I got a job. I'm sitting there like, yeah, I got a job. I'm like, Coach, I love player development. He's like, I want you to get in recruiting. And I'm like, hey, Coach, I love player development. He's like, if you want a job, you're going to do recruiting. So I'm like, well, you know what I'm saying? You ain't got to tell me twice. I'm going to do the recruiting. So I got into recruiting and I enjoyed it. It was different, right? It was my job. Like, I'm like, man, I'm finally found this passion for player development, but you know what? I don't have a job, so I'm going to do recruiting. So I got into it thinking I could balance both. Like, all right, I'm going to be able to still be there for the players and do the recruiting as well. I was not able to because this was recruiting and scouting. And so I was not only responsible in helping Alex Brown like set up meetings and set up recruiting and set up this. Shout out to Grace Muscarello as well. We all work together to get things done. And recruiting is very, very active. If you're ever in recruiting, like there's no stop. And then on top of that, when Bobby Merritt came in from the Houston Texans, we did a whole build out of like player personnel. So we were scouting guys. So I had, 10, 15 guys I had to watch each day and break down, give them a grade. And this is what I think about them. Should we offer them or not? Whatever it may be. And I enjoy recruiting because relationships, and I enjoy scouting because I feel like I have a good eye of talent and evaluation. And I learned a lot from Bobby Merritt. I learned a lot from Alex Brown. Shout out to Alex. Shout out to Bobby. And so I got to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm learning this stuff. But what I realized was this was we were a full on scouting staff with recruiting systems and personnel systems. And we watch film all day, like literally. I remember watching film like for 10, 12 hours a day. And I felt good in evaluations because it was like, yeah, we all agree, great job on evaluation. But I missed the human connection with our players. Like the recruiting stuff was cool, but I missed our players and I missed being with our players. And players were getting on my head. They were getting on my head with the new switch. Like they were like, hey, oh, look at Ed Jones. Ed Jones, he don't fool with us no more. Ed Jones on that other side, he do recruit. They must have gave Ed Jones, we smell like new money. And I'm like, nah, y'all chill. Like I got to do what I got to do. But I remember I had a conversation with a player in the hallway and I felt bad. Me and him were building a relationship. And we had a conversation in the middle of the equipment hallway. And he was like, hey, man, I don't see you anymore, man. And it's like, he was like, man, I need you around, like, and I don't see you, and it's tough, man, because you were the person I went to, blah, 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 and that hurt me. I was like, bro, I'm here, like, I'm in the building. He's like, nah, man, it's not the same. He was like, it's not the same. Like, I got moved into an office of a recruiting office. I used to have my own office under Coach Herman. I had my own office where players come in. Now I was in a recruiting office where it's a little tougher to have conversations. And so I just remember that like burning. I was like, bro, that hurt. Like that just hurt me because he was just and another player. They were on my head because I was with them. I was with them. Like y'all, when I say I was not necessarily like hanging, but I was around them all the time. And then now they don't see me. They were like, we thought you went to Texas. That's the one player that we thought you went to Texas. I was surprised you work here. And so that was tough. I'm not gonna lie to you. It was tough, but I had to do what I had to do because I needed a job. And what I noticed too is our freshman class, we had a couple of challenging players who I felt like if I would have been there, if I'd have been in that role of player development, I would have helped them make it through. Two of them did not make it through the semester. They had to go back home. And I felt like if I was in a role, I would have been able to help them. And so that was tough, like that tough reality, seeing these freshmen. I tried to help them on the back end by doing some stuff and being there to take them to this or be there and talk to them, but I didn't have that foundational relationship built. And so that was tough. And so I had a conversation with Bobby Merritt. Shout out to Bobby. And I was like, Bobby, man, I love, and Bobby's leadership was incredible. Bobby did an incredible job of leading us. I learned so much from Bobby. I said, Bobby, man, I love your leadership, but this ain't me, man. This ain't me. I need to be around the players. I need to be around. He said, Ed, we see it. We see it. He's like, Ed, every time we watch film, there's a player around. You leave to go, I take a break. Oh, I got to go get water. I was actually going to go talk to the players. And so I'm glad he understood it. He went and talked to Coach Applewhite, and then me and Coach Applewhite had a conversation. And me and Coach said it before I did. I was like, Coach, I need to meet with you. He's like, all right, Ed. And then before I even opened my mouth, he said, Ed, I need you to go back to player development. I'm like, well, thank you. He's like, well, what did you want to talk about? I was like, that. And so I was able to go back to player development. Shout out to Coach Applewhite for seeing that as well. During that 2017 season, my second year in player development, and we wrote out, hey, this is what we want to do. These are the deliverables, different things like that. And so that was really, really great for me in that year, in my second year, to get back to player development. Like I said, I did what I had to do. Sometimes in player development, and when you get a job, you got a family, you got to do what you got to do, right? Just had our first child was on the way, so I got to do what I got to do. If a coach wants to hire me to do recruiting, I'm gonna do recruiting. So like when I got a job at Hightower, I'm a defensive guy, right? Y'all looking at me like he coached receivers. Yes, I had to coach receivers because Coach Max said if you want a job, you got to coach offense, right? So I learned receiver play, which actually is I really enjoyed coaching receivers. Very similar to D line play. I played D line. It's very similar line of scrimmage stuff. We can have a separate conversation on that. But I really enjoyed coaching receivers. But it was basically, look, I got to get a job. So the lesson I learned there is in my year two was roles may change, but the passion doesn't. So my role changed, but the passion did not change. And so as I got back into 27, or if I got back into as I got back into player development in 2017, it helped springboard me to what's happening or what happened in 2018. And while I'm talking about that, I want to see where you are in your player development journey. I want to see where you are in your player development journey. I have a quiz assessment you can take that says the player development journey. Where am I on my journey? And I need you to take that because I want to give you the resources you need wherever you are on your journey. So head into 2018. This is the year I fully built out Beyond the Field. This is when we were taking it to the next level. This is when I like Coach Applewhite put me back in the role. He gave me the resource. He said, Ed, go. And so Beyond the Field was literally built because shout out to Joe Al Kozer. I had never presented player development to parents before. And so we're going to 2018 and Joe says, hey, I need you to present to these parents. This might have been the back end of 2017, but 18. So let's just call it 2018 for the sake of time. And he says, I need you to present to parents. I'm like, I don't want to just be, oh, that's the player development guy, right? I didn't want to be that. So I have a marketing minor. So marketing is all about how you sell yourself, right? Always be closing, always be sell, whatever they say. And so I was like, you know what? And I was in the parking lot talking to Adam Cordaji, and I was like, Adam, man, I need to make something. I need to make something like that shows what I do and how player development helps the players beyond the field. And Adam was like, there it is. And I'm like, it is. And we both had this eureka moment at the same time. And so that's when Beyond the Field started. And I said, okay, well, BTF, right? I'm a 3. I know, the rule of 3. If any of you all been to my webinar, would you go here? There's a rule of 3, right? Rule of 3 in communication theory, where things are more memorable when they're in threes, right? And so Beyond the Field, I was like, well, let me do 3 pillars. I need 3 pillars, right? And so those pillars, I picked what Coach Herman told me. Take care of the players, get in the community, get the players summer jobs. So for taking care of the players, I was like, okay, if we take care of players, that's personal wellness. To get the players in the community, that would be community impact. Let's not go to only the community, but let's create impact in the community. And then the last one is if they need summer jobs, they're going to need full-time jobs. So let's call it career development. And so, man, 2018, like it really, really took off. So we were already big in the community. We had H-Town as our town shirt. So basically if people went and did, community impact, they got a shirt, right? It was pretty awesome. So people walk around with that, people see what we're doing. Then after that, we were doing personal wellness. I was getting to really, really learn our players, spend time with them, but also connecting them with the people that they needed to connect with, the people who can help them further than any training or education I had. And then the big piece in 2018 was the career development side. I'll never forget, I was going to the business school at the University of Houston. Shout out to the Baylor College of Business, one of the top business schools in the country. And I was talking to the person who does alumni, and I said, hey, do you mind, creating this listserv or sending this email to the listserv? I got this copy. Basically, our players want some experience, some externships, whatever it may be. And she was like, yeah, I'll send it, but I don't think anybody's going to respond, because this is about the business school and the alumni. I said, hey, look, here's the deal. I'm not going to disagree with you. If you could just do me a favor and just send it. So she sends it, y'all. And guess what? I get emails like in the first 15 minutes, right? Boom, 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 boom. So we were able to get people, to shadow entrepreneurs. We got people to shadow with tech. I think we did some med stuff. It was really, really good. A lot of those fields in Houston, we were able to get our players experience. So 2018, we're going off, like things are going well. I'm getting ready for 2019. They actually, got us, shout out to Marcus Tubbs. He let me get some pamphlets. I'm going to brochures. I'm going to companies. I'm meeting people on campus. I'm meeting people in the city and the counties around the Houston area. And I'm like, yo, it's about to take off. Like we're literally positioning for Beyond the Field to take off. Our players are understanding how off the field stuff matters. Our boosters, our fans, their parents, the parents of the players, our recruits see everything we're going. So we have we're building an ecosystem of like, hey, I'm going to take care of myself outside of playing. And so I'm excited. I'm like, yeah, let's go, let's go. And then we got fired. We got fired during a winning season, 8-5, and we got fired. Won a chance to play in the conference championship. We lost our starting quarterback. We had to put out a true freshman. Shout out to Clayton Tune, who's still in the NFL. Shout out to our starting quarterback was De'Aaron King, who is the quarterback's coach at SMU right now. And we got fired. We got fired in a winning season. And I remember being like, dang. And I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, do I believe player development has something to do with the product on the field in a minuscule and sometimes micro, macro, however you want to say it? Yes. But I thought I'd be okay because my development, my responsibility was everything that happened off the field. But I was not. I actually had a good conversation with one of our big time boosters. Shout out to Miss Elaine Ebner. She said, we fought for you, Jones. We wanted to keep you because of the great work you're doing. But part of the agreement was the new head coach was able to wipe the slate clean. And so that was tough. That was tough because it's my alma mater. And I felt like, hey, I've done enough stuff to stay here. If I wanted to talk to somebody, I didn't get the opportunity to talk to the head coach. And it is what it is. But before we got fired, I get a call from a 785 area code, which is Lawrence, it says Lawrence, Kansas. And shout out to Marcus Tubbs. He's like, hey, man, I gave Kansas your number. I don't know if anything happened, but I gave him your number. And in sports, you hear that all the time. Hey, I gave somebody your number, so I wasn't thinking anything about it. But literally, I'm talking to our trainers, and she said, what's about to happen? I was like, I'm about to go get fired. And literally when I say fire, I get a 785. Hey, is this Ed Jones? I'm like, yeah, who is this? It's like, hey, this is Stephen Biter with the University of Kansas football. We heard that you are the man for the job. I'm like, I am, but I'm about to get fired. Can I call you back? And so we go down to AD at the University of Houston. We get fired. We got let go. I'm like, come on, man, let's go. I got things to do. And so I get back on the phone and call Steven. We talk. We negotiate what a salary could be. But I had to do this interview with Coach Miles the next week in at AFCA. So this is in 2018. So getting ready for the 2019 year. And so in my third year of player development, the lesson I learned before I get into Kansas story is someone is always watching you. Someone is always watching. So in my third year, Marcus Tubbs had been watching me for 2 years in player development. He saw my passion. He saw that. I would go to him and talk about what we're doing. He invited me to the weekly meeting, right? Where they like strength coaches there, all these people were here. He's like, Ed, you need to come to I forgot what it's called, a senior football meeting or the senior strategy football meeting. Can't remember what it was called. But he said, Ed, you need to be here. And what happened was when I talked to Marcus, I found out Kansas had called him like, hey, we got this position. We think you'd be great at it, whatever. He said, hey, I don't want to do that. But I got a guy here that if you're not going to hire a former player, you need to hire this guy. He's a home run hire. And if you don't hire him, you're going to regret it. And so that lesson there in my third year is somebody is always watching. Someone is always watching. Can't thank Marcus Tubbs enough for that. Now I don't even call it alley-oop, assist really to KU. And so that's what I learned my third year. So 2019 was my fourth year in the role and my first time moving outside the city of Houston in the state of Texas. And so I was in KU for year 4. Shout out to the Jayhawks. All right. So I was hired by Les Miles. I actually had that conversation with him at AFCA, which is pretty fun. And like, I had to get myself ready or prepared because I'm like, yo, this is Les Miles. And I worked for Coach McGinnis. Coach McGinnis is from, Baton Rouge, loves LSU. And so he's like, man, that's Coach Miles. So I go in there and I'm like, all right, I take a deep breath. I'm like, all right, I'm going to interview this Coach Miles. Just get over it. Go in there. You'll see him and then you got to get the job. So I go in there. All right, cool. That's Les Miles. I'm like, all right, we got to get the job. Me and Coach Miles are talking. We're having a great conversation. At one point he had to take a break. And so he had some notes and I saw the recommendations he had on there. So I kind of did one of those. And it was pretty cool to see the people who recommended me and what they said about me. It meant a lot. But anyway, I had an interview with him and I remember he stood up. I gave him the brochure. I said, this is what I do. I remember he stood up. He said, hey, if I gave you this job, would you accept it? I said, Coach, absolutely. Absolutely. So I get in the car with Alex Brown and we ride back to Houston. I say, I feel good about it. And that Wednesday, I got hired by KU. So it was awesome. I got hired by KU and had to be there by Sunday. So for you all working in player development, I want to work in it. It's a quick turnaround in a lot of places. So I get to KU and I'm super excited. It's the Big 12. We got more resources. The facilities blew me away. Like at KU, I didn't know the facilities were like they were, specifically the Anderson football complex. So I get there and I'm like, all right, I got all this stuff. I got all this momentum from Houston. I got more resources. This is what I'm going to do. This is how we're going to get it done. Coach Miles is excited. I meet other people on the staff. KU has a great, KU leads. They got a great foundational deal for student athlete development. And they gave me a lot of resources. And I was getting put in meetings I had never been in at the University of Houston. I'm talking to scouts. I had never talked to scouts at the University of Houston. They got me in meetings with ADs. Like, I'm representing the football program. I'm in decision-making meetings. It was incredible. But one thing I learned in KU that first year, and well, let me go over what we did. We did a lot of great stuff. I'll keep the lesson learned. Well, actually, you know what? The lesson was learned early, and then it helped me get to a place. And the lesson I learned there is I came in like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. So my fourth year, the lesson I learned was figure out the resources and those who will help you. So I came in, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, this is what we're going to do with football, this is how we're going to do it. This is what, going from Houston, we didn't have resources. I had to create these things. I get to KU and there's resources and people are like, hey, Ed, we got something set up. Hey, Ed, we can help you. Hey, Ed, this is here. Hey, Ed, this is, and I sat back about 2-3 months in, like, well, let me not recreate the wheel. You know, there were certain things Coach Miles wanted, but there are certain things that we didn't have to recreate the wheel. So after learning that lesson, it was smooth sailing. We did a lot of incredible stuff in the community. We had a lot of, the alumni at KU was stronger from what I saw. At Houston, they came back. We did a lot of different externships around the city. We're getting players connected here. Players are doing stuff with the police department, local athletic director. We got Malik Clark with Merchants, the restaurant on Mass. We got community. We're all around the community. Only school that would let us in are Kansas State graduates. They're the only ones who would let us in, but I met with the superintendent. I'm having meetings with him. And then personal wellness, shout out to Christy Baumshin and so many people. We were getting so many things done. And it was incredible to see because unfortunately we weren't winning on the field. And so I don't want to say combat that, but to make the experience of the athlete, remember, player development is about enhancing the experience. Well, they're not winning. How can we enhance this experience? We had a lot of different programs and a lot of our players, shout out to them. They jumped into things we were doing to help them. And it was good to have the backing of Coach Miles. And we had great summer series. And then George Majid moved in and he worked at KU. Shout out to George Majid. We did some stuff there. Took some students to Black Student Athlete Summit. I was able to go to NACTA and learn. I'll never forget, Sam Burt asked me, he's like, hey, he had a 4.0, and I always take pictures with the guys that have 4.0s. I'm like, hey, guys, I got to leave in an hour. And Sam Burt was like, where are you leaving? I was like, well, I'm going to this professional development, N4A in Orlando. I want to learn so I can come back with more stuff. And I remember Sam, he told me, he's like, hey, I think a week later, he's like, thank you. Thank you for going to learn how you can help us. And it was incredible. We were doing a lot at KU, a lot of support from boosters. Linda Sims still hits me up, Candace Dunback. It's so many people. It was just a great experience. And what KU did for me, KU accepted a guy who had moved from Houston, had never been out of the city of Houston, never been outside the state of Texas. And they welcomed me and they said, hey, we see this in you. Let's push you to the next level. And that was something that I just could never thank the people at KU enough. And so that was my fourth year of player development. Beyond the Field, that's where Beyond the Field took off. That's where we got to do everything. Like all the momentum I had from Houston, we just ran with it at Kansas. And so once again, that lesson I learned early, my fourth year, was figure out the resources and those who will help first. Then 2020 came. That was my fifth year in player development. And I still remember how it happened. We were literally we came from a Black Student Athlete Summit in January. In February, we did program and career fair with KU leads. Our football players had the most players there. We had just finished a speaker series in March, getting ready to go into spring ball, I believe. And then we were planning to do a Kansas City tour with Kansas State University, Missouri. We were all going to get together and do a Kansas City Metro tour. We had just did a tour with Todd Zahner and real estate. We done some great things there. We were able to Mike Rivera, who played for the Jayhawks, he was doing big time commercial real estate in KU as well. He came and talked to the players. We had the Olathe Chamber come to we were building big relationships, and COVID put a pause to that, just like it put a pause to everything. And so going into year 5, I'm sitting here, we got all this momentum. We're getting resources. I'm thinking I'm going to be able to hire somebody else. I'm thinking I'm going to be able to get a pay raise because I'm looking at how much I'm doing. And yeah, that unfortunately did not happen because of COVID, and we all experienced COVID in our own ways. I don't want to spend too much time there. But what I did learn was our players were using their voice. And I wanted to say, hey, we're not just going to use our voice on social media for change, whatever that looks like. but I want to give you all the opportunity to put action behind your voice. And that year we had 4 committees: the Social Impact Committee, the Career Development Committee, the Community Impact Committee, and the Player Wellness Committee. Those are 4 committees we had. And I just let the players say, hey, let's just, what do y'all want to do? And so I learned so much from the players that year. That year, social impact, we did voting, voting registration, voter education, player wellness. We did a lot of things to get players together, even in COVID with our restrictions, to get them together. Community impact, we made sure we stayed in contact with the schools that were local, the pantries that need to get people done. And then career development, we made sure people had headshots and LinkedIn's and all that. We built all that. And we did about 16 programs during COVID that were player based. And so the lesson I learned in year 5 was give the players opportunity to put action behind their words. I learned so much. That is the biggest year. I learned so much from what players wanted and how important it is to give players the voice and the space for action for their program. All right, so coming out of year 5, going into year 6 of player development, like I said, COVID happened and that was a reality. The furloughs, different things like that. And I was just at a point where I looked at our program and, you know, it was one of those things where I enjoyed being directing player development. And Coach Miles even said at his radio show, he said, Ed Jones is the head coach of the team. He was like, he knows more than I know about this team, right? And jokingly, but admittedly, there were some things that I knew that Coach didn't know, right? But it was pretty interesting because that goes back to what I thought originally when I hung up the proverbial whistle. But I also wanted to be challenged. I wanted to do different things. And I was like, okay, like, is this, as much as I'm doing, I wanted to grow. 2 things really were big there at KU is I felt that it was time for a raise. I saw my value for the program during COVID specifically because I did a lot of operation stuff, a ton of operation stuff. And then I wanted someone to be in there. I wanted to hire someone. And so those are 2 things that COVID made challenging, honestly. And so it was tough. And so I got a call. I'll never forget 2021. We're heading into year, that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, year 6 at in player development. And I get a DM from my guy, Justin Johnson. I get a DM from my guy, Justin Johnson. Shout out to Juice. And Juice is like, hey, man, give me a call. So I had his number. I was like, hey, Juice, what's up, man? He's like, man, I'm at Baylor and we got this director of player development position. Would you be interested? I'm like, oh, snap. And I kept track of everybody who did player development. And I don't remember seeing that there. And so what happened was I was like, okay, all right, yeah, absolutely. So I start going through this conversation. I get on the call with a couple of people and I go through some conversations. I know a few people that work there. So I'm talking to them about different things. And what happened was eventually I get on with the head coach there at Baylor and we have a couple conversations and, you know, it's kind of going here. At the same time, another program hit me up, which is pretty interesting. That program, though, I could kind of tell they were going to lowball. So I was like, I'm gonna leave it alone. So we're having this great conversation with Baylor and it got to the point where I had a final interview, nothing virtual, nothing in person, no FaceTime, just phone calls, good old school interview, I guess you can call it. And it got to a point where the head coach was like, hey, we're going to offer you the position. And yeah, he's like, here's the salary. And I was like, oh, okay. It was a $40,000 pay raise. There were no furloughs going on at Baylor. So that was a pretty simple, pretty simple choice there. But the one thing that I kept asking was like, hey, I knew, like I said earlier, there were 2 things I wanted. I wanted a bigger salary per my value, and I wanted to hire people. I knew coming out of COVID that it'd be difficult. So I was like, hey, what would this player development department look like? And, you know, what could it be? And there were things that were said to me and it was like very promising. Like, hey, we want to be the best or we want to be the best player development department there is in football. We can hire, maybe not right now, later. So I'm like, sweet, awesome. So, you know, I'm still, hey, let's go, let's talk. So I get there, everything's good. I get my first assignment like in the first week or 2. And I'm like, yeah, let's go. That's awesome. Like I created something called the Baylor Standard because Coach Aranda was like, hey, I don't, you know, I created something called the Baylor Standard because the head coach was like, hey, I don't know. He's like, I want to create something cultural. Like something I know you taught, like how do you do things? Oh yeah. So I created the Baylor Standard, very similar to the Champions model we did with Tom Herman at the University of Houston, but we created these different pillars to, you know, if you did all 4 right, you were the standard, basically showing that it benefits being in the benefits being doing the culture in our program. So that was really fun. And then things kind of took a turn. They took a turn. And once again, this is the real, like whatever happens here, I'm not saying this to demean program, coach, university, but I got to keep it real. Things took a turn to where it was like, hey, we want you to check breakfast and check classes. And that basically became my entire role. And I was kind of like, okay. I remember going to check classes. Checking classes has always been something I did at every school. So I don't want to make it seem like that's nothing I never done. But the amount of class checking was incredible. And the breakfast checks were 3 hours, 5 days a week. So 15 hours of my week were breakfast checks, which I'm seeing players literally put their thumb on the deal and then I have to check them, right? And I didn't mind going to breakfast and spending time with players. I did that everywhere I was at, but like to be in there 15 hours a week, we're not going to be doing stuff more productive. I thought that was, different, but that's neither here or there. But I remember I was checking class one day and one of the interns said, they pay us to check classes, right? I was like, well, apparently I get paid to check classes. And it got tough. It got tough at Baylor because I spoke out. I said, hey, coach, you hired me to be assistant athletic director for player development. I would think there's a little more responsibility. There's more things I could do in the program. And that just wasn't received well, right? By the head coach and his top assistant on the operations staff or the executive staff, whatever it may be. But I learned a very important lesson there. I got hired. Somebody warned me and they said, hey, you got hired as the same time as this chief executive for the football department. They said, normally the way it works is that person's hired first and then that person helps filter your role. And so there were things that this person heard and things that I heard and about the role that didn't clash. And if I can go back, what I would have done is set all three of us in a room and said, hey, what does this role look like? Like, what does this look like? What is this becoming? Whatever it may be. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. I remember going over the summer and feeling good. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do whatever I'm asked to do. It is what it is. It's not looking like what I thought it would be. And that was a little frustrating. I was not allowed to go to player development programming as assistant athletic director. I was not allowed to go to the programming, and the program, I had no say in the programming. It was just tossed on my desk. This is what we're doing in the program. Got to a point where one time I didn't even know one speaker was in town. They literally hit me up on LinkedIn and were like, hey, I'm so excited to see you. And I'm like, you in town? Like, what's going on? So that's all I need to tell you about that situation. Unfortunately, like I said, it wasn't great. So I went over the summer after we did the programming in May that I was not invited to or allowed to be at, whatever it may be, however you want to take that. And I remember coming back and I was like, I'm just going, my wife, we had a good vacation. She's like, hey babe, just God's got you here for a reason. Just be you. So I get back and the head coach brings me in and he's basically saying like, hey, yeah, you're not doing what we hire you to do. You're not doing your responsibilities. And that's when I was like, whoa, wait a minute. So I keep a list. Whenever I go to an interview, I write down notes of what someone said. So I say, hey coach, I can go back. And I remember say you're trying to be like a student athlete development person. They have something called Baylor Built or SACE, Baylor Built, and trying to be like that. I said, coach, that's what you interview. I asked you these questions. So I said, hey, I'll go back to my desk if you don't mind. I got the notes. I asked these questions. I asked specific questions. So there was a little like, oh, okay, because I'm like, hey, you're not going to fire me in 6 months and tell me I'm not doing what you told me I should do. Now, if you have something you want me to do, please let me know. So then we had that conversation. The head coach let me know what he wanted me to do. Cool. So I had to switch everything. I realized, hey, I'm not going to be doing programming. My player development intellect will not be used here. That's totally fine. I'm going to do what he asked me to do. He wants me to do this. He wants me to check breakfast, wants me to check class, wants me to be this, wants me to do some of the punishment stuff. Cool. I'll do that. Whatever. Right. So I create systems and all that. So once again, it is what it is. It is what it is. It wasn't a great environment for me personally. It was just tough. It was tough going through some depression and different things there. I don't need to get into detail, but it had its moments of toxicity and it is what it is. Right. And so what I learned through that process was at the end of the day, it's relationships that matter the most. It wasn't a program and it wasn't an opportunity to be in front of the players. It wasn't an opportunity to speak in front of the coaches. It wasn't an opportunity. It was the relationships. What helped me get through that time, because that was a tough time. This is the most money I make. That's why I tell people all the time, it doesn't matter how much money you make. That was that 11 months was tough. It was tough for me as a person and as an individual to be at a place where you want to work, where you want to help, and you're told this is all you can do. This is the only value you have to the program. That is tough. That is tough. But it all happens for a reason anyway, right? So I learned at the end of the day, it's all the relationships that matter. The guys came to me because I had relationships with them. So I started doing some things around. I started doing programming around the different things that I couldn't do, right? Well, if I can't do this, let me do this. If I can't get invited to the player development programming, well, then let me ask them the next morning, hey, what did you learn in the programming? So now I can learn what they learned so I can help them, right? So I had to do things like that. It is what it is. That was just a reality, right? And so the lesson I learned there is at the end of the day, relationships matter. The relationships with the players are all that matter. You can do all the programming. If they don't have the relationship, it doesn't matter. So I got fired after signing day. So we had signing day. The next morning I was popping balloons, just being me, having fun, trying to keep my energy up in this time. And I got called in the office and heard, hey, you did a great job with the athletes, but we're going to let you go. And I was just like, hey, well, can I go to a bowl game? We had a Sugar Bowl coming up. We had just won the Big 12 championship. So I don't have a helmet from Baylor. And maybe one day I'll get one, but I have my Big 12 championship ring here. So we won the Big 12 championship. So we're going to Sugar Bowl. And I was like, hey, I knew I could kind of see the writing on the wall that was going to happen, honestly, because I wasn't given responsibility and I'm just not a sitting duck. And sometimes I thought to myself, am I crazy? I'm making $110,000 to basically check classes and check breakfast. Maybe I'm crazy, but the way my dad raised me and the dignity in people and like the way my coaches coach me and the way I am about being the best I could be, I just couldn't sit there. So anyway, I kind of knew it was going to come. So I got fired. I asked to go to Sugar Bowl and I was told, no, this is your last day. You can pack your stuff or we'll pack it for you. And so then the crazy part, I went downstairs to swipe, get my stuff. They had already turned my card off. Like you would have swore the way it ended, there was no dignity there. You would have swore that I had committed a crime. But once again, it happened. It's just the reality. It's raw, right? Wasn't a great feeling, but you learn from it. So anyway, I get fired. I get let go. It is what it is. And like I said, that was year 6. And so lesson I learned is at the end of the day, all that matters is a relationship. And I bring this up because when I got fired, I got fired on signing day was a Tuesday. Yeah, Wednesday. Signing day was a Wednesday. I got fired on Thursday morning. And Saturday was our players' graduations. I was at their graduation. I remember a couple of players was like, Coach, like, what, like, they were already frustrated. I got fired. They were literally, this is crazy. I haven't shared this, but there were some players that were gonna like literally not go to practice. They were gonna like, nah, this can't happen. Nah, that ain't right. And I was like, guys, look, I'm a grown man. Y'all's future is ahead of y'all. Do what the coach says. Cause I don't want them to say anything to scouts about you all, blah, blah, blah. I knew they were lying about me while I was there. So I didn't want them to lie about the players. And so I told the players that I was like, hey, whatever it may be, just like, they were like, nah, I was like, y'all players were shocked. I remember having a conversation with one player in the NFL right now. He was like, you're joking. I was like, when have you ever seen me wear my backpack? He was like, never. He was like, I'm fired. So once I got fired, I went to go talk to players immediately because I wanted them to hear my voice. But anyway, I show up to their graduation 2 days later and they're like, Coach, what are you doing here? I was like, yo, when I told y'all I love y'all, I told y'all I was here for y'all. I'm at your graduation. So I have pictures with me and Terrell Bernard and Jalen Petrie, Mark Milton, Jackson Shuff, Brandon Bass. There's videos of me, Tristan Ebner, Tyquan Thornton, BJ Hansford. I got pictures with all those guys. And that's like one of the things I still cherish to this day was being there for those guys. Those guys were there for me. And so it was interesting. But once again, at what I learned in year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is that relationships matter the most. So going into year 7, so this is 2022. I'm thinking I'm gonna get the job. I'm like, hey, I'll get a job. That's fine. There was a SEC program that was communicating with me during the season, trying to get me to leave Baylor. I was like, I ain't doing that. I just got here. The coach just hired me. We just purchased home. I ain't gonna do that, man, like that. And then what happened to me happened to me. So anyway, in 2022, going in the 7th season, I went a couple months without a job. Went 4 months without a job. I'm like, I'm gonna get one. Went 6 months without a job. And I'm like, dang, 7 months without a job. I'm like, man. So I actually have an interview with a head coach that I know, who's a Division I head coach that I know personally. We got to build a friendship. And he says, hey, Jones, I'm hearing stuff out of Waco. That's not you. And I said, respectfully, coach, like, what are you hearing? He was like, they're saying that you're selfish, you're all about yourself, and you can't get done what you get started. And I'm like, dang. Like, ooh, those are low blows. Like, my whole deal is like, if you don't want me to work for you, fine. Like, I got a kid, my wife, we got 2 children. I got a kid on the way and they're lying on top of this. And I'm like, man. And another program called me and they said, hey, we heard that you got fired because this person doesn't like you. And I couldn't say anything because I had 6 months to get paid. And I was like, look, whatever they say is true, right? And so there were things going around and it was very tough. I did have some people who did have my back. Shout out to those coaches. They know who they are. One coach called a program and was like, hey, they did Jones wrong, right? But there are some people, I was shocked going through that whole situation, how many people turned their back on me. It is what it is. We're all where we need to be. God is good. And anyway, I will get back to the lesson. So during that was tough. So what I did was I was like, you know what? I wanted to create a podcast. I liked the podcast, but one of the main reasons I started the podcast was I was like, okay, I'm gonna start a podcast because if people are saying bad things about me, I can't go out and say things about the people who are saying things about me. Because the way it works, if a college football program is winning, whatever they say is law. So no matter what I said or said, hey, this is wrong, this is a lie, if they're winning, that's all that matters. People, they don't care what anybody does if a coach is winning or a program is winning. So I said, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna create a podcast and I'm gonna share my voice and talk about player development because I always love talking about player development. But somebody's gonna say, if this guy's selfish, why would he show up every single week and create this much value for free? And so it started off really, I was I'm gonna do 25 episodes to kind of not public relations, but to get my name out of there. And I just kept going. I kept going and it was great. And I got to a point where I needed guests and I reached out to people and I was nervous reaching out to people because some of these people I reached out to had relationships with people who work with me who honestly weren't saying great things about me. So I didn't know how these people fell in the spectrum of where is Ed Jones? Who is Ed Jones? And so the podcast helped me. I did 20 episodes and people were hitting me up. And unfortunately, I'm still not getting a job. But I'm like, you know what? I like this. I began to like it because I like teaching. I love sharing. And what I learned in year 7 of player development through the podcast is the real ones will show up in your life. The real ones will show up. The guests I had were real ones, right? They were like, nah, we know who you are. Like, you a great dude. Like, what happened. It has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with your value. I'll never forget talking to Alexander Martin. And I didn't want to get on a podcast with Alexander. I didn't because I wasn't feeling well. I'm like, man, it's 7 months. I ain't got no job. We got a kid on the way. What did I do? I'm sitting there like, God, what did I do? I did nothing wrong at this university. And this faith-based university is lying on me, right? These people, maybe not the whole university, but people that work there are lying on me, right? God, this ain't right. And so I remember I had an interview with, I just like, you know what I'm gonna do, Alexander? Because I want to respect his schedule. He works in the NFL. I want to respect his schedule. So we get on a podcast. He kind of feels, he's like, man, how are you doing? I just had an open moment, man. I said, man, I'm hurting, man. This is sad, bro. And he's like, bro, I don't want you to ever think that your value is tied to a position. You are valuable as who you are. And I mean, I needed to hear that, man. And that helped so much. But I learned in year 7 that the real ones will show up. And so that year 7 in player development, you know, I wasn't with a team, but I was developing people. It was awesome. I was having conversations about consulting with people. But one thing we had to do is we had to get out of Waco. We had to get out of Waco. If anybody's ever been to Waco, it's basically Baylor University and just the hospital. So we had to get out. So year 8 in player development, we moved to Kansas City. And I'm like, I'm still doing a podcast. I'm still doing different things. I got a new job. Finally got a job. And I'm traveling on my job. I'm talking on the phone with Justice Jones, and Justice Jones like, man, we need something to get us all together. We need a player development conference. On October 3rd, 2023, I remember I was on a call with Lauren King, and I was like, you know what? She came on as an intern and said, we're going to create the player development conference. We're going to create the player development conference, and it's going to be virtual. And I got 28 people to sign up. I said, if more people sign up than the speakers, we're good. And so I was blown away. Blown away by just people wanting to be a part of that. Oh, sorry, October 3rd, 2022. Let me go over. So in year 8, we're in Kansas City. And in year 7, after the podcast was successful, I got an intern named Lauren King. Shout out to Lauren King. And I decided on October 3rd, 2022, in my new job, I was in, I think I was in Detroit at the time for my new job. And I said, hey, we're going to have the player development conference. It's going to be virtual. And if more people show up than the speakers, it's a success, right? And so we got the planning and I was like, all right, we got 29 speakers. If 40 people show up, we're going to be good. 110 people showed up. 110. And I remember like seeing all the red shirts. I remember sitting in my garage literally crying like, God, this year has been crazy. The last year, 18 months has been crazy, but you're faithful. And I didn't know what this looked like. I was like, I don't know what this looks like. I don't know what this is going to do, but apparently you're saying walk this way, go. And so people showed up. The conference was incredible. It was phenomenal. And so I had this momentum. I'm like, all right, sweet. The conference went well. It was a player development conference at that time. It was virtually. So I'm like, you know what? And people kept asking me questions. I'm like, hey, I'm going to throw out a cohort. Maybe I'll do a cohort. And 73 people signed up to the waiting list, right? So I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. So I'm like, man, if I had better systems, all 73 probably would have made a cohort. So I get to the Elite Eight, shout out to the Elite Eight, and I have a cohort and they show up with me for 4 to 6 weeks. I think we did 5 weeks overall. And they show up and I'm teaching them player development. I'm just going hard on player development. And it meant so much to me being year 8 to teach people player development. So you know what? It probably is not going to happen. At that time, I'm looking at it like it's not going to happen for me. And I was like, you know what, let me help other people. And so 8 people showed up to the cohort and that was incredible. And the lesson I learned there is people want to be in this space. People want to be in this space, right? Going back to 2016, I was in a space I didn't know what to do. And now I have the opportunity to help people who want to be in this space. So coming off that momentum, I did a couple other cohorts. Shout out to the Terrific 3 and I did a couple solo cohorts. But we're getting ready for going to year 9 of player development, the 2024 player development conference. So to make it a little more professional or geared towards people who are in the role or close to the role, we increased the ticket price, right? To get more professionals, things like that. So I was a little nervous. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm like, man, the ticket price, maybe, a few other people will come, maybe, we got 110, we upload ticket price, maybe 50 people will come. 85 people came. 85 people came to the second player development conference. And it was incredible. 2024 was a year where I was doing a lot of interviewing. So I didn't do as much stuff outside of the conference. I was doing some interview for some assistant athletic director positions, interview for some stuff here in Kansas City. But I also just got to a point where I was kind of like, all right, this is year 9 of player development. I know what I want to do. I did more content, so a lot more podcasts that year. And so the conference, we had 85 people there. And what shocked me that year, and year 9 might have been the one where I didn't get all the stuff that I wanted to get done. But what I learned in year 9 is the value is in the resources given to others, right? Take the step. I learned that. The value is in the resources given to others. Take the step. So I created a lot more. That's when the newsletter dropped. That's when I created the player development newsletter, which you can subscribe to down there. I started doing more podcasts. Like I said, I started giving more instead of like having cohorts or even paid services. I had more resources. I was like, let me give more resources. So that was year 9. And then year 10, which we're in right now, 2025, has just been unreal. Unreal. Some of you all know we had the player development summit that just happened. My book, the player development guide, is out. You can get that. Check the show notes. But having these two, the player development summit, and then my books came in the week of the summit, which is crazy. Praise God for that. And so, and then just my mind just literally just the things that have happened. It's May right now. The things that have happened this year, if it's getting speakers, if it's getting sponsors, if it's getting venues, if it's this or that, it's just been crazy. This year 10 has been a year where I reflected. Some of you all know I had a couple interviews. There's a podcast up here. I had a couple interviews for some good positions. One position was, in the MLS. Another one was in the NFL. And it didn't work out. And I had some realities there. But I'm in a place right now where I am fully understanding that every single one of these years, from 2016 to 2025, every single thing that happened, from the highs at Houston, the highs at KU, to the lows at Baylor, to the lows of 2022, whatever it is, all that got me to this point. All that was needed to get me to this point. And I can say firmly that what happened to me in 2021, getting fired, is when I look at where I'm at now and how many people I've been able to help, is the best thing that happened to me. The best thing that happened to me. You probably saw some of the emotion there when I was talking about it. It still stings, right? It still stings. But I understand, coming on the back end of it, that is the best thing to happen to my player development journey, because I wouldn't be doing this podcast right now if I was still working for a university. I most likely wouldn't have this book if I was still working for a university. And this dang sure wouldn't happen if I still worked for a university. To see people on the stage, who I have helped in this player development space, to see Mike Miller, to see Faith Gurdon, to see that entire panel. Alexis, I gave some nuggets to. Lauren Hawkins, who I hired at KU. Shout out to Lauren. I forgot to mention Lauren. We did great things at KU because Lauren was there. To see people, get they're just like, hey, yeah, I remember I got a call from somebody a couple years ago when it was virtual. Hey, I did your conference. Next thing I know, I got a promotion. To see that, to see people come in a space where they can go back to a high school or college or pro and get developed. Year 10 for me, it's been great. And what I've learned in year 10, the lesson I learned is, and I would pray to God, I was like, God, why is this happening? Right? 2021, 2022, 2023, I was down. I was depressed bad. Y'all can look at videos. I gained a lot of weight. It was just bad. It was bad. And And I remember just thinking like, God, what do you want me to do? I just kept hearing the word consistency. And it was frustrating. It was frustrating to hear that. Like, God, come on, come on. And so what I learned this year is consistency. In year 10 of player development, consistency breeds impact. Consistency creates impact. Consistency is impact. The consistency, all the consistent things I've done for the last 10 years in player development, being there for others, providing value to others, has created this brand to go stronger than it could ever be strong. There's somebody coming from Australia to spend time in Kansas City with me for consulting. That is crazy, right? But the consistency breeds impact, right? And if it's the book, which is going out, the book has been sold internationally. College, high school football coaches have it. College football coaches have it. The player development summit had over 100 people there in the room at one point. It's incredible, right? All that stuff, everything of this breeds impact. And it's got me thinking, what else can I do now? You know, I'm prepared for the player development retreat. The player development retreat later this year, you know, because I want to create impact. I want people to get into place. I want to teach too. That retreat, y'all, is going to be me teaching. We're going to talk about this. We're going to go all the way down. I want to teach. I can't wait. But all of this breeds impact. And so I know I kind of towards the end, I got excited, the motivation, because you know, to see it all get to this point, it just means a lot to me. And I'm going to stop because I'll probably get emotional. But to see this book, to see the summit, to see the pictures, to see the likes and subscribes I have from these videos, to see people paying attention, to see this championship ring I have, to see the college football helmets, to see all these behind me, right? From a high school coach in Missouri City, Texas, it all matters. Consistency breeds impact. And that is my story. I wanted to share that. I know some of you all asked about my story. I know this is long, but I just want to get it all out. Some was shorter than the other. There's 2 reasons I kind of navigated that. I got to cook dinner, and this battery on this camera is about to die. But wherever you are in your player development journey, I want to help you. Once again, that assessment is in the notes. And I'm excited. And also, if you want to learn about the player development retreat, that waiting list is in the notes as well. So I am excited. I'm thankful for you taking time to watch this. Thankful for you all who want to learn about my story. It's a lot. I love talking about my story. I love talking in general. So let me know what you want to know, any other questions you have. But I feel like that's most of my journey. And I hope everybody hears my heart. I have no ill will against anybody. Whatever happened, happened. Because I just feel like God's got me where he needs me to be. I'm thankful for everybody who gave me opportunity. Every single head coach that gave me opportunity. Coach Robert Blackshear, who gave me opportunity at South Lakes High School. Coach Patrick McGinnis, who gave me opportunity at Hightower High School. Coach Tom Herman, who gave me opportunity at University of Houston. Coach Todd Orlando, who gave me opportunity at University of Houston. Coach Major Applewhite, who gave me an opportunity at University of Houston. Coach Les Miles, who gave me an opportunity at University of Kansas. And Coach Dave Aranda, who gave me an opportunity at Baylor University. So thankful everybody. Thankful all my people I work with. Shout out to Lauren Hawkins, who worked very, very closely with me when I was in a role at KU. Shout out to Lauren King, who's been helping me with Beyond the Field, and everybody else who's been helping over the years. And it's a lot of people to be thankful for, but that is my journey. That is my journey. I wouldn't trade it. I would not trade it. I would not trade it. I love where I am, and I can't wait to see where it's going next. But as I always say, go out and create generational impact. Don't wait, create that generational impact today. That is my story. So nobody else, you can watch this. If somebody asks, hey, what's this story? You're like, who is this guy who's passionate about player development? Watch this. Thank y'all. Hey.